Right below Sweden and Norway, in northern Europe, lies the country of Denmark. Copenhagen is the nation's capital. In relation to Berlin, Copenhagen is about 269.7 miles north of Berlin. That's about 6 hours by car and ferries. Nearly every side of Denmark is bordered by a sea, making many islands property of Denmark. Only about 80 of the almost 400 islands are populated.
Hello there. You should visit Denmark. Denmark is a great place to go shopping, play soccer, and do lots of other fun activities. Denmark itself is a very low-lying country with mainly flat terrain. The highest point in Denmark is only 568 feet above sea level. This place is called Målehøj. This is a very slow for a whole country. Mountain Park Lake Oswego is itself 975 feet above sea level, and the summit of Mount Hood is about 11,250 feet above sea level. This shows how flat and low Denmark really is. Denmark has few lakes but no rivers. Denmark has a decent winter, but summers are colder. It's about 32 degrees in winter and only 60 in summer. Denmark also gets a lot of precipitation, usually between 22 to 28 inches. Copenhagen is on the eastern coast of Zealand, the largest island on the Danish archipelago, or largest chain of islands. Copenhagen is also a low-lying city sitting at sea level. The best man-made place to visit in Copenhagen includes the Tivoli Gardens, which you should go to. It's the second oldest amusement park in history. Christiansborg Castle, which is where the Danish Parliament is located, and is a great place to visit and see historical sites. And Nyhavn. Nyhavn is a famous man-made Danish landmark. The historic harbor was built in 1673 and started as a busy commercial port. Nyhavn, or Newport, is Danish hub was the hub of all trade in Denmark. Now Nyhavn has bars, restaurants, and shops, making it a great mall and a great historic place to visit. Also, since 1673, many famous artists have lived in Nyhavn. Famous artist Hans Christian Andersen lived, painted, and wrote fairy tales along the port of Nyhavn. Some of his fairy tales include The Tinderbox, The Princess and the Pea, Thumbelina, The Little Mermaid, and The Emperor's New Clothes. As well as Hans Christian Andersen, H.G.F. Holm lived in Copenhagen. Holm is most famous for the pictures of Copenhagen, which are now displayed on walls and in museums throughout Copenhagen.
Bicycles and phones are a large part of Copenhagen's infrastructure. Firstly, the main method of transportation is by bicycle. Nearly everyone rides bicycles on the well-kept bike paths or bicycle superhighway of Copenhagen. Roads are included in society's infrastructure, and without roads in Copenhagen, it would be unlikely to see as many bikes. But because the infrastructure is strong, Copenhagen contains many paved roads and bike paths, making the native cyclists content. Many Danish citizens use both cell phones and telephones frequently, which is another part of Copenhagen's infrastructure. Telecommunications are part of infrastructure, which adds on to being a large part of movement in Copenhagen. Infrastructure is the basic organizational structures needed for a society to operate, and without roads or telecommunication, neither bike riding nor telephone use would be available. In relation to the theme of movement in the U.S., bike riding is much more popular and used by more citizens in Denmark than in the U.S. As well as bike riding, phone use is more popular in Denmark than the U.S. About 83% of Danish citizens use phone, while only about 48% of Americans do.
Another great thing about Denmark is their environment. Denmark is one of the cleanest and least polluted countries on Earth. Most of Denmark's energy comes from wind and solar power instead of coal. This reduces the amount of pollution in the air and helps keep the environment healthy and clean. Denmark was not always so environmentally healthy though. In the 90s, Denmark's industrial side released about 38 million metric tons of CO2 emissions per year. CO2 emissions are one of the worst greenhouse gases there are. They pollute the environment, causing extreme weather changes, global temperature increase, loss of ecosystem, and potential hazardous health effects for people. In the mid-90s, Denmark was ranked among the 50 nations who had released the most CO2 emissions in that year. After receiving this ranking, Denmark started making laws requiring companies to stop polluting. These laws have helped Denmark's environment, and after 20 years, Denmark now has one of the cleanest, best environments among all countries. You can visit a place in Denmark with 100% renewable energy. This is called Samso. Samso's energy comes from all the solar powers and windmills. There is no energy from coals anywhere in Samso. Also in Samso, you cannot drive big SUVs. You can only drive small, fuel-efficient diesel or electric cars. These cars help not pollute the earth, and also when you're in Samso, you can go to the research center, which is an energy institution that anyone can go and see how Samso went from being a bad, filthy town to the most environmentally clean town in the world. And it only took 9 years for them, and hopefully this is a stepping stone for the rest of the world, and hopefully the rest of the world can be like Samso in the near future. You're done, right? If you're not done, I'm gonna kill you.
Forgot to film it.
That's funny.
52% of Denmark's land is arable, but only about 4% of the workforce are employed for agriculture. This low employment rate is due to the popular use of machines for agricultural work. Agriculture in Denmark produces high-quality produce and brings in some revenue. Danish agriculture produces about 3 times the total population of Denmark. Although natural resources are very limited, which makes international trade and industry crucial to Denmark's economy. Industry is so important, 75% of all exports are industrial, while only 15% are agricultural. Smaller manufactured goods range from beverages to ships, while major manufacturing consists of furniture to diesel engines. International trade usually includes food products, ships, fuel, and electricity. Denmark also runs a trade surplus of oil located in the North Sea. Major trading partners of Denmark are Germany, Sweden, Great Britain, France, the Netherlands, the US, Japan, and Italy.
Oh hey, I'm just learning, much like the millions of kids in Denmark. Denmark, primary education is free and required for 9 years. After primary school, 2/3 of kids go to job training or head right into jobs, and the other 1/3 of kids go to secondary school to prepare for college. Once the students complete several vigorous exams in secondary school, the kids go to college. Colleges in Denmark are free because the Danish have a more socialized economic system in which the government provides several free services for the higher taxes. Today, students in college focus on literature, history, sports, photography, and religion. In college, they prefer to focus on personal development without exams. Denmark ranks among the highest in the world in per capita expenditures on education, which is how much they spend on education. This is really good for the country. When you go to Copenhagen, you can go to the Danish Parliament. The Danish Parliament is the seat of the Danish government. Denmark is a constitutional monarchy, and both the monarchy and Parliament share authority. The head of the executive power in Denmark is the Prime Minister. He must sign all legislation passed by Parliament. Denmark's Queen, Margrethe II, looks over the Parliament, but does not have any actual power within the Parliament. The Parliament, or Folketing in Danish, has 179 members, including 2 from Greenland and 2 from the Faroe Islands. Both Greenland and Faroe Islands preside under Denmark. An example of the preside under Denmark. Elections for Parliament occur every 4 years, and the voting age is 18.
Hi, Andy.
Okay, just stop. Copenhagen has an interesting culture, a lot like the US. The family sizes are relatively small. The average total fertility rate, or TFR, in Copenhagen is 1.7, which is close to the US's TFR of 1.9. A difference between Copenhagen and the US is that in Copenhagen, 1/3 of the kids are born with unwed parents. Instead of being married, the parents live together and share the responsibility of the child. Also in Copenhagen, both men and women work equal amounts. And because of this, both men and women are responsible to share the responsibility of the child and housework. Each parent is expected to split the housework chores evenly. Also, because both parents usually work, the government funds daycare centers for young children. These daycare centers allow both parents to work and split the responsibility of the child evenly.
Commonly, Copenhagen is cool and humid with some overcast. Winters are windy but mild compared to other European regions. Summers are cool with an average high temperature of 72 degrees Fahrenheit. The national church of Denmark is the Evangelical Lutheran Church, and the members are 95% of the Danish population. About 3% of the remaining population is Christian, while the remaining 2% is Muslim. Lutheran influence is in everyday life and schooling, but church attendance is only on Easter, Christmas, and other major religious holidays. The official language of Denmark is Danish. Danish is a Scandinavian language which allows Sweden and Norway to comprehend the written form of it. Though Sweden and Norway can only understand the written form, this is due to differences in pronunciation, intonation, and slight vocabulary. English is required in school curriculum after the 5th grade. This makes English a common practice and often used in society. Natural resources in Denmark are very limited to agricultural land and rock. Nearly 2/3 of all Danish land is used for agriculture, making industry very important to Denmark's economy. Types of rock that are native and used in Denmark's economy include clay, stone, chalk, lime, and other rocks. Denmark relies heavily on the income of international trade and exports. The topography of Denmark is mainly low, flat plains. The highest point of Denmark is Molohe, which stands at 561 feet tall. Although there are small hills, ridges, and raised sea bottoms, there are also many inland seas and short rivers.